Hi everyone, welcome to another video on my YouTube channel. Now today what I want to talk about is how I film a wedding ceremony and the process of how I film it as a solo shooter. So with that, let's get into the first steps of what we need to talk about. So first of all, I film a wedding ceremony usually with 3 cameras. I do have the option of a 4th, but we will get into that. Now first of all, gear. So I have 3 cameras. 2 cameras that I use are a Canon R6 Mark I and I have one R6 Mark II. I'll get into the 4th one I use in a little bit. You don't need to have 3 cameras. I first started out using 2 cameras to begin with. However, at the start of 2023, I was able to purchase another camera which I can use as a back camera for my setup. So hence why I've now got 3. So my A cam is actually on me at all times, standard on a monopod. So what I use with this, so it is my first Canon R6 Mark I and I have a 50mm lens on the camera, which is a Sigma one, so it goes all the way down to 1.4, so you get that dreamy bokeh look as the bride walks up the aisle. So what this camera mainly captures is, first of all, the bride walking up the aisle and the bridesmaids. So when the bridal party walk in, I am dead center behind the registrar or the celebrant or the vicar at the top of the aisle. So you can see the groom in shot majority of the time, and that'll capture every bridesmaid coming up the aisle and then finally the bride. What I do then with this is, because I'm on a monopod, I'm able to move around a lot more easier and it's a lot more flexible to do so. I move 45 degrees to my left, which then I am focused mainly on the bride. So this will be capturing her vows and the rings for her side. And then what I actually do then is, just at the end of the ceremony, just before they have the first kiss, I can then move back to the center for the first kiss. When the registrar usually moves out of the way, I'm dead center and you can see the first kiss with all the guests in the background clapping and etc, etc. So once the ceremony is finished, I will head to the back of the ceremony room so I can then capture the bride and groom having their exit. Usually they'll walk out with a lot of celebrations, maybe have a kiss halfway down the aisle, and that's where that part finishes for the A cam. Now my B cam is the other one of my R6 Mark Is, and the lens I have on this camera is a 24-70 Sigma, which goes down all the way down to 2.8. So it still has that little dreamy look. The main purpose of the B cam, in an ideal sense, is to be capturing the groom's reaction to the bride coming up and also capturing the groom's vows. So as you can see on the diagram, at the top of the aisle on the left hand side, 45-degree angles, this is facing the groom, because traditionally the groom will be, as you walk up the aisle, on the right hand side and the bride will be on the left. So this camera is focused on the groom on the left hand side at a 45-degree angle. Now when all the guests sit down, when the registrar allows them to do so after the bridal party have entered the ceremony, I then move the camera around to a 45-degree angle, which is where it will stay unmanned throughout the ceremony. And what this will then do is capture the groom's vows and then the first kiss at a different angle. So my C cam is the Canon R6 Mark II, and the lens I use on this is a 24-105 from Canon. So the position of this camera is usually at the back of the ceremony, usually on wide. So this is what you would call your safety shot. So when I used to film with 2 cameras, I used to have one of these cameras at the back, again on a wide, so it is my safety shot, so I am then free to move at the front because I've always got a camera rolling. So again, now I'm filming with 3 cameras. The C cam is to capture the whole ceremony from the back. So when I actually use my 4th camera that's in my camera bag, what I can actually do with this camera, my C cam, is zoom down the aisle, so it actually gives me a tighter shot from the back, which sometimes, if couples have a very nice floral arch or balloon arch or whatever it is at the front, you can actually incorporate that as a backdrop, which then looks really nice throughout the whole ceremony, mainly using the vows for that shot. However, some aisles are a lot longer than others. So if I'm wanting to have a tight shot down the aisle, for example in a church, I actually have a Canon 70-200. So this lens will then go onto my camera to give a lot longer vision down the aisle and a lot more tighter shot when I'm so far away. So my D-cam is actually this tiny little thing. This is the DJI Osmo Pocket 3. Now I actually know a few videographers who use these and for the same purpose I do. So this is actually another alternative to a wide camera at the back of the ceremony. Very good quality, shoots in 4K, and everything's actually in focus. So if you're looking for a camera that is very, very safe to be able to use at the back, this is one of your best bets without having to fork out another £2,000 on a decent camera. So let's talk about how I use audio for a wedding ceremony. So for the audio, I use these. So these are the Sony TX660s. So I actually own 6 of these. They're very small, very discreet, and they're very, very easy to use. So how I use these is I actually put one of these on the groom. So this will actually, with the little clip it's got on here, sit into his top pocket just here. I never ever mic up a bride because you can imagine putting these on a lovely white dress isn't very flattering. It's just going to spoil the look. So, well, these are actually labeled. So I actually have one for the registrar, and like this one says here, it's actually got reading 2. So I have another 2 sets for if there's any readings. Usually there's only 2, but they are just there just in case. So speaking of readings, during a ceremony, if the bride and groom have chosen to have readings, when I'm talking about my A-cam and using a monopod and it gives me the freedom to be able to move around, this is the camera I will try and use most of the time to move around and capture a good angle of the person giving a reading. I do have my back camera, like I say, as my C-cam to capture from the back of the room. So this is actually another good angle. Again, being a safety shot, it's not the most prettiest, being right at the back, but using my A-cam moving around, I can position myself in a good position to then capture the reading. Now, throughout the whole ceremony, every single camera and every recorder is filming or recording the whole time. So when it comes down to editing everything, I can just put everything into Final Cut Pro, click multicam, and that will then sync everything through the audio of the cameras and the recorders, and then it will give me a very, very easy way to edit the ceremony. Now, I made a big mistake on my first ever wedding. Like I was saying before, I actually used to have 2 cameras to film ceremonies with. This was my first ever wedding, and I had a very, very old Canon that I borrowed off my parents and one of my Canon R6s. So what I actually did was, which I didn't realize at the time, is the back camera I was using was recording the whole time. However, on my other camera, I was actually stopping and starting recording through different parts of the ceremony. So when I'm moving around, I was stopping recording. Yes, it may sound like a good idea, but when it came down to editing, it just made it that little bit harder to be able to put everything together through a multicam. It just took that a little bit longer. I know you might end up having a lot more storage, but trust me, it is so much easier just to continuously record throughout the whole ceremony and then put it together in post. So just to recap, from the start of the ceremony, whilst the bride's walking up the aisle, I've got the C and D cam at the back of the room. I have the B cam focused on the groom, capturing his reaction to the bride coming up. And then I'm at the top with my A cam, capturing all the bridal party and the bride entering for the ceremony. When everyone then sits down, I'm moving both cameras at the top to a 45-degree angle either side. So this captures the groom's vows and the bride's vows, rings giving, etc. Just before the first kiss, I then move around with my A-cam to the centre of the aisle for the registrar to then move out of the way to then capture the first kiss. So once they have had the first kiss, they will then go and sign the register, which then gives me 5 minutes to take both my cameras from the top of the room down to the back, and I will then use my C-cam and my A-cam to then film the exit of the couple. So that is how I film a wedding ceremony as a solo shooter in the UK. If you did like the video, please subscribe, give me a like, comment down below what you thought, and is there anything else you would do very different? This is the way I do it, and I've done it for 4 years for over 200 weddings. It's never failed me before, and I'm going to keep using this strategy moving forward. Like I say, let me know what you think. I hope you have enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.